There is too much transparency with which superhero movies are made, completely removing the magic from those productions and leaving me and many others with the crushing reality of just how corporate they truly are. But are the studios at fault, the dozens of clickbait news sites, or just my terminally online brain? Welcome to Sandwich Reviews. I'm the Talking Sentient Sandwich, your nihilistic optimist, and I absolutely love superheroes, and I will continue to watch their movies until the day I die, no matter how badly in shape the medium in general is. But that shape isn't the best right now. And let's start out by diving right into the criticism, because in their infinite wisdom, superhero producing movie studios, Marvel very publicly, have made a lot of mistakes, not all of which have been made recently either. And I do want to be hopeful about all of this as I strive to look on the bright side, though my hesitation to expect too much from future MCU projects has been heavily documented. However, out of all of those mistakes, one has been made time and time again, adopting this trend for some unknown and frankly mystifying reason, and causing a domino effect to get everyone else to follow along, all the while proving that these studios have absolutely no trust in their fans. And unless we all stand up together and say enough is enough, this problem will only become worse. That, of course, being a constant stream of announcements, which reveal character or story points that shouldn't be public knowledge in the first place. The newly emerging DC has done a better job with that, publicly stating that the only projects to get the green light are those with a complete script, but that rule of only giving a finished script the green light should be the standard. But what can I say? Sometimes a project is steamrolled into production despite not being ready, which is how you get Schrodinger's Blade. Is that movie dead? Is Mahershala Ali still even in it? We may never know. But just look at the recently announced Mummy movie, whose announcement was all about Lee Cronin's finished script. That in and of itself got me unbelievably excited. But getting back to superhero stuff, I am aware that no matter what I discuss, simply because I've brought up the DCU and the MCU in the same video, the comments on this will probably be filled with toxicity and people trying to make the argument about James Gunn versus Kevin Feige. But let me get right ahead of that and say, it's nothing like that. I have another video essay in the works entirely about the DCU versus the MCU, so I won't spend too long on this, but to quickly talk about that, competition can cause problems. I won't lie and say that it doesn't, but inherently, it's necessary and usually ends up with great products, with both sides being able to lift each other up and make themselves better through that friendly rivalry. And it is friendly. Any animosity seen is entirely manufactured by toxic people who want to create hate. Just look at James Gunn and Zack Snyder. According to some fans, they're at each other's throats. But no. If you look at the actual human beings that are James Gunn and Zack Snyder, I don't know why I said it like that, it just makes it seem like they aren't human. But they are just people who support each other and want each other to see success. So before I actually dive into the criticism that I'll be honest is mainly directed at Marvel, let me just remind you that superheroes are fundamentally about being kind and supporting each other, so please be kind and understanding in the comments. But with that out of the way, let's get back to the incessant need to reveal and report on every little new bit of information. And seeing that every bit of new info released is public knowledge, every self-proclaimed superhero fan feels like they need to be a part of the conversation, as if there's some kind of fear of missing out, despite it all being about a movie or TV show that sometimes has years until it can be seen by anyone anyway. I understand that these film studios need to promote their movies and generate hype, but everyone who is already on their side doesn't need more and more cast and story confirmations, and the people not on their side will never be swayed by it. Of course, I write this video essay with Chris Evans returning as Captain America in mind, a piece of news that has already been eclipsed by a million others since I started typing this script up months ago. God, I gotta work on that turnaround, and was not too long ago disputed by Evans himself. But that's not the only example, not even close, not even in recent memory. Because along with Chris Evans, multiple headlining articles came out and said that Haley Atwell would also be in Avengers Doomsday, after a possible period piece featuring both captains fell apart. And aside from the fact that it's disappointing to have that revealed by a news site and not the movie itself, something that you should probably keep in mind because I might circle back around to that idea in the conclusion, but what that says to me is that Marvel doesn't trust any of their fans to think for themselves. And DC isn't blameless when it comes to this problem, they just haven't had the chance chance to make such colossal mistakes in the public eye. Because as much as I want to keep blowing smoke up James Gunn's butt, something that I have become a professional at of late, there are at least a couple of known DC projects that should not be public knowledge that they're in the works. James Mangold's Swamp Thing movie, Mike Flanagan's Clayface, and I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I'm just gonna take a run at it, Luca Guadagnino's World War II Sergeant Rock movie are all beyond interesting to me, and could be as phenomenal as they are creatively original. And I am undeniably more hyped for DC because more and more auteurs and creatives are hopping on board and pitching projects, allowing for every release to feel like it's leaning towards true artistic intent rather than being part of some big machine. Though we have yet to see if that's really the case. And I kinda wish we didn't know about any of those projects, because on the off chance they fall through and those incredible filmmakers move on, I'll be soul-crushingly disappointed. That or the Batman Part 2, which has been delayed so much, I'm beginning to believe I'll be going gray and looking like Miller's Dark Knight Returns Batman by the time I see it. God, I wish. Anyway, we always knew Part 2 was coming, but regardless of the legitimate family reasons as to why the script is taking so long, its whole writing process has been far too public. We shouldn't be getting updates that Reeves is 3/4 of the way done. If anything, that just puts pressure on him. And it would be easy to just put the blame on clickbait news sites, and they definitely are responsible for a lot of this, but I can't help but think if a movie studio didn't want any of this to be reported on, it wouldn't be. Some projects have been filmed in a green screen closet, and the cinematography is lacking thanks to that, but that is usually used when the filmmakers don't want secrets to get out, and it sometimes works. I certainly prefer daytime shots on location, but when that happens, that opens up the problem of paparazzi and set leaks. The reason why we were able to get so many good looks at the characters of Superman months before anything official came out, though it is just straight up difficult to keep a film's shoot under wraps. Even if every precaution is taken, all it takes is one disgruntled employee working on that movie, or just someone randomly wandering on set to snap a picture and ruin a surprise for millions. In that specific scenario, that is on that person, and on the many, let's be honest, grubby news sites that decide to report on it for clicks and clicks alone, not on the studio or anyone else. But regrettably, that creates a trend for every other superhero news site to follow, whether they want to stay ethical or not, because for some of them, their livelihoods depend on getting those clicks. I'm fortunate enough to have a real job that pays rent, so I'm not reliant on getting enough revenue from these videos to buy food, but if I was, I could see myself being crushed by the required expectation of each video to perform well. And in that, I do understand why some would resort to putting a clickbait title and thumbnail on their article or video. I might even be guilty of doing that at times, being somewhat hyperbolic to bring eyes to a video of mine that otherwise wouldn't do as well, because those people want to either disprove or agree with whatever ridiculous statement I've made. However, the content of said video is always written and edited with care, to be respectful about what I'm talking about, and so as not to step on any other content creator's toes. A carefully considered step that is bypassed far too often. Seriously, whatever happened to common decency? Just makes me want to somehow stop the paparazzi from being able to snap all of these photos and cut the YouTube grifters off right at their supply chain. Although I do want to be clear and say that that wouldn't be a solution, and filming in a closet isn't either. Just as I mentioned earlier, and I'll continue to repeat it because it is that important, is that outside sets and shots will always look better than secure rooms with manufactured lighting, regardless of other problems that may arise. Plus, it may help a movie keep its secrecy, but I don't think that's even necessary. Just for one example, there's the Fantastic Four shoot, which did have a couple leaks, but for the most part, we still know next to nothing about that movie, and that right there is how it's supposed to be. Honestly, I make this video just because I'm tired of knowing everything about a movie months before its release. And sure, I could mute the dozens of words and phrases associated with it, avoid any clickbait thumbnail, and jump through every other hoop to steer clear of potential spoilers, but that is far too much work for someone who also likes to be in the know. And I'm aware that that's contradictory to everything I've been saying, but what can I say? I'm always going to internalize any new info released to further develop any theories I have about the future. It's just what my brain does even if I try to stop it, and I also don't actually want to stop it because it's fun for me. I've built a whole YouTube channel off of it. I just have to call out the fact that it does sometimes ruin the chances of a movie succeeding and sometimes ruining the movie altogether, which is similar in idea to the thought that trailers unnecessarily reveal everything in a story, a topic I have talked about in a video essay long ago, but like a lot of my other video essays, it wasn't really seen. So to restate what I discussed there, while I love seeing trailers or any kind of epic edited down version of a movie depicting its style and overall feel, I do think that watching a movie blind without watching any of its trailers or promotional material, if that's even possible nowadays, makes for a much better experience. Obviously, sometimes you just don't know what a movie is and want to get a peek at it before diving in and devoting your time to it. And I do get that, but it's just a better experience without them nonetheless. If they do show something new, which they often do, then that means that they'll reveal something that would otherwise make for a mind-blowing moment in the movie. There are an infinite number of examples that I could pull from just to show how deep this epidemic goes, but the most recent and significant example I can think of is from Deadpool and Wolverine, which in one of its final trailers showed that Laura Kinney, the X-23 Wolverine, would make an appearance. And not just that, it also showed a substantial amount of the emotional campfire scene with her and Logan. I mean, I'm glad they were sensible enough to not show Gambit, Blade, or Elektra, but considering everything else in those trailers, I'm assuming that must have taken some serious restraint. And I bring up Deadpool 3 because that was a particularly extreme instance of revealing too much, but the same is true for almost everything, because our subconscious will recognize even a small portion of a set piece already seen in a trailer and will build some kind of narrative from what is already known. Though maybe that's just me, because I know I sometimes just can't stop myself from storing something in the memory banks. But this point is also true for what has become a growing cancer in the superhero medium, that being early toy leaks and sometimes official releases that spoil who a character is or what their design will be. And I'm not talking about every toy release, because superhero movies will have tie-in action figures no matter what, even if the property isn't for children, though most of the time they are. I'm talking about those that unnecessarily reveal key bits of information, and I'm especially annoyed by that because surely it can't be that hard to wait a little bit to reveal a toy or keep things under lock and key before the movie comes out. Give that movie at least a couple weeks for its story to be seen by those who care before its toys come out and spoil everything. I'm talking Funko Pops, even sometimes Lego sets. It's ridiculous. But what all of this boils down to is a battle with these studios wanting to keep their projects constantly in our minds versus trusting their fans to think for themselves, which aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. In a perfect world, and with enough delicacy, it would be more than possible to have both. But if I had to choose, I would choose the independent option, because at worst, Marvel seemingly doesn't want anything else to be in our minds, which is beyond ridiculous and certainly not true, yet at first glance does seem to be the case, especially for newer, less informed fans. And I know that Marvel, as well as any other movie studio, is simply releasing any given information when they can to garner excitement, but like I stated earlier, those announcements don't get people hyped, which is thanks to any number of factors, but chiefly because we already know all of these characters would be coming back for Doomsday and Secret Wars. They're the MCU's multiversal Avengers movies. Everyone introduced in the multiversal saga will make an appearance. Hell, everyone who's ever been in a Marvel movie is probably gonna be there. Weeks ago, it was reported that Doctor Strange wouldn't be in Doomsday, and I didn't believe that for a second, because of course he'll be in it. And sure enough, Benedict Cumberbatch turned out to be more of a Benedict Arnold, given that he was lying to us, though mistakenly. Does that joke work? Do people even know who Benedict Arnold is? In any case, I didn't necessarily think Chris Evans would return, though I did have an evil Avengers team in the back of my mind, yet that could have been such a cool surprise to see. Just imagine how much of a shock that would have been if it was never even hinted at. To my knowledge, they managed to keep his return as Johnny Storm under wraps. Why not this? Like I mentioned earlier, I can't see this shift in announcements going away. In fact, I can only see it growing and becoming worse, which really sucks, because if we just didn't know about any of this, it would make for an undeniably better experience. Instead of constantly releasing new, slightly different trailers or revealing every facet of a project with a grand announcement so it becomes publicized news, just stand back and let the fans speculate. That is how hype is built. But who is really at fault? Well, it's the clickbait news sites picking at any new piece of information or supposed toy releases like vultures. Obviously, but sadly, everything from the way superhero fans consume media to the toxicity of the internet itself is set up for that to succeed and continue on. It should be easier to go into a big superhero blockbuster blind, but it's nearly impossible. Taking so much constant effort, it's almost not worth it, because odds are someone is going to let slip the information you've been avoiding anyway. A disheartening fact, because there should be surprises in these movies aside from character dynamics and cool action scenes, which is the only thing the bad superhero movies have. The reason why they fail. So if you don't want your superhero movies to fail, cool it with the announcements and try, at least a little bit, to keep everything in its story under wraps. Do you agree? Is there perhaps another aspect of blockbuster filmmaking that you think is worse than constant announcements and reveals? Let me know down in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe for weekly video essays and reviews, and remember to have a great day.